Bird, 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 bird. Get him, get him, get him, get him, get him. Yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Well, I don't know about you, but it's July 16th on my wristwatch. I don't know when you're listening to this, but I have come to the realization that I'm not ready for this hunting season. And the truth of it is my dogs aren't ready for this hunting season. But I've got 2 months to work on it. And one of the things that takes the pressure off of me is knowing that all of my sponsors got my back on everything else I need to go hunting. So all I got to do is get these dogs conditioned, and I've got my title sponsor, Onyx Hunt, Onyx Maps. They're going to get me to my next place, my old place, and my friend's place, because it is the #1 hunt mapping system on the planet. And while I'm out there, Pike Gear's got me covered with early season, mid-season, late season, wet season. Pike Gear's got everything I need to go hunting with to put on my back and on my butt. Boss Shot Shells has everything for every shotgun I have, and God knows I have about 30 shotguns, and I need a little something from every caliber. I don't care if you shoot 410 or 12 gauge. Doesn't matter what you are looking for and what you need this season. Go to Boss Shot Shells, the only copper-plated bismuth non-tox shot shell available. Okay, the only one that's copper-plated. They've got you covered. So you'll be ready for hunting season if your dogs are. Once you do knock a bird down wearing Pike Gear, finding your spot on Onyx, and using a Boss Shot Shell, you're going to need to prep it, okay? Whether you're going to need to vacuum seal it or season it up and cook it on the tailgate, Walton's has got everything that you could possibly need in their catalog that'll make this hunting season feel like it's not sneaking up on you like it is me. My dogs will never have anything to worry about in their gunner kennels. My dog's food will never have to worry about anything in the food crate. I could be through one of those floods they're having out east. I guarantee you, if we had the floods in Twin Lake, Michigan that they had out in New Hampshire and New Jersey and all that, my Purina dog food would be high and dry in that gunner kennel food crate. It is 100% airtight, bear-proof, waterproof. I could at least come back after a flood and go, yep, I can get the dogs fed. Everything the gunner makes is over-engineered because that's what lasts. Same thing with Garmin collars. Like, there's another thing that takes the pressure off me. My dogs aren't ready, but here's another piece of equipment that's always ready to help me navigate, to help me train my dogs. Garmin, Garmin is like the one word. In fact, someday, instead of somebody says, do you train with an e-collar? They're just going to say, do you train with Garmin? Because it's synonymous with dog training and navigation for your dog. And W Hunting Supply is the one place you will go that you will learn is the best place you can go to buy your Garmin products, because there's no special deals, okay? MSRP is a manufacturer's suggested retail price. You might find somebody throws in a T-shirt or somebody's going to throw in a leash, but when you buy a Garmin product, you go to W Hunting Supply and you get personal service from hunters. You've got questions, you've got troubleshooting, you've got something that's wrong, you need something overnighted. W is the only company that's going to take care of you like that, period. Just like Purina is the only dog food company that takes care of your dog. They've been taking care of your dogs for 100+ years. There's one reason why the majority of all dogs that win in all circuits, from every trial to every hunt test to every agility course to every show ring, there's a reason why those dogs eat Purina Pro Plan, because their owners love them, and they don't want them to. They want them to look good. They want them to feel good. They want them to run good, and they put their food in a gunner food crate. Now that's just a sidebar, but when you want to go that little extra step, you want to hydrate and recover your dogs. Canine Athlete makes products for your old dog, for your young dog, for your working dog, for your dog who's got the queasy stomach. They got Canine Pro. They've got Hydrate and Recover. They've got New Dog. They have got you covered from stem to stern, just like Purina does, like W does, like Garmin does, like Gunner does, like Walton's, like Boss, like Pike, like Onyx. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not ready for this hunting season, but I've got all the gear I need to be ready when I'm ready. When I get those dogs in shape and I turn the key on that Dodge and I go out and get that four-wheel camper in Sacramento, didn't I told you about that last week, right? Yeah, that's our newest sponsor, Four-Wheel Camper out of Sacramento, California. I'm getting a Model M camper, and I am going off the grid this year. I will be able to park anywhere, solar panel on the roof, pop this thing up, fits on my truck just like a cap, decking me out with everything except axes and shovels. I told him I didn't need the axes and shovels, but the extra gas cans, water jugs, electric inverter, porta potty, you name it. I'm flying across this country for the next, for years. You're going to be seeing me with my four-wheel camper. Look up the four-wheel camper Model M. You're going to be like, oh boy, that's going to change shit. And if you're still like me and the dogs aren't ready, I hope you're using the Upland Institute. I hope you are going there to, say like, okay, I need a little steadiness. Okay, I need some foundation work. Okay, I've been watching too many YouTubes and I need to find one course to take. That's what you do. You go to the Upland Institute. You got 2 months. You can get a lot of work done in 2 months, and the Upland Institute is going to be there. You can put it on your phone. You can watch it while your buddy's driving. Get your dog trained, okay? And if you want sheer entertainment value and educational value, if you're still listening to this after 6 minutes, and that's a pretty short one for me, you know it is, BehindTheDogFilms.com is the series that Matt Jorio and I are putting together. We're bringing to you everything that goes in behind the dog. That's us. That's the breeders. That's the trainers. That's the tips. Everything that we do is behind the dog. Our whole lives are behind the dog. Check it out. $4.99 for a video, and I'm telling you, you will never be sorry you spent $4.99 in your life. That's the price of one good beer and one good bar. And you will learn stuff that you would never get for free on YouTube. All right, everybody, it's Ron and Justin back for part 2, as we promised. We wouldn't make you wait long. We kind of ended up with our last question. I think you touched on it, like one basic rule for hunting 2 dogs together, especially if it's possibly your dog's first year, and how you approach it and how you suggest people approach it. Yeah. Let's recap that, because I don't have it memorized, what you said.
Well, there's guys who are very good with dogs, sometimes have quite a few of them, and they end up doing it almost out of necessity, or they can't get everybody worked in a day. Yeah. But the scenario that I can see being problematic for your average hunter is it's them and their friend. Right. And let's run them together. And one of them is first season dog, okay? And you can try it. I never tell people don't try it. I think last time we finished up, my general safe advice is hunt them alone.
Yeah, right? I think that's your last sentence, yeah.
But if you are going to try it, here's a few things that you ought to have on your radar and watching for. Oftentimes that young dog is going to continually be just distracted by the presence of another dog in the field. That's something brand new to him. You haven't prepared him for that yet. He's just learning himself. And so his focus on what you guys are there to do is continually being interrupted by what this other dog is doing. Though a little bit of interaction right out of the chute is pretty normal. The dog's ding-dong around a little bit for the first 5 minutes. But then you should hope to see them working independent of each other.
Right.
But if consistently throughout the entire hunt together, walk together, hike through the field, that younger dog is always racing over every time it sees the other one, and it's interrupting its focus on what you're trying to imprint in this dog or establish. This is what we're here to do.
Right.
It's counterproductive. You're
not doing them any favors.
No, you're not doing many favors at all. It's a counterproductive distraction.
And could that, Justin, could that be even, let's just say, 2 buddies both got dogs, but one of them happens to maybe have a little more experience? That dog might be fine. He's kind of doing it. But the other dog, How do you read that, though?
Well, you can see it.
For someone who's like, just let's give the doobie, like, is it just that one is kind of checking in with the other dog more often?
Every time he sees that other dog, it fractures what he's doing, and off he goes.
Even if it's just a little cast and then back,
it's pretty blatant.
Yeah.
They're just continually interrupted by the presence of that other dog. Whatever it is they're engaged in, their hunt, their search, their running. So it's not hard to spot.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that can happen is some dogs by nature will get kind of, if they do know their job and they do stay focused on it, sometimes they get very competitive with the other dog in there.
I could see that too.
Yeah. And all of a sudden in their competitiveness, their range and their drive and everything will really start to stretch out to the point where maybe they're not so connected with you anymore.
Right.
You've kind of drifted off from
maybe
their
trying
mind.
a little harder to get faster than the other dog, which that's taking them off of.
It can be. Now, if you have kind of a putsy kind of dog, sometimes pairing them with a dog to try and spark a little competitiveness can have a benefit. But if you have a real clingy dog.
A clingy, that's a good word for it.
A real clingy type dog. Who
inexperienced and clingy.
Inexperienced, clingy, lacks confidence. Sometimes small doses of with another dog can help them get going. But if they get so competitive with that other dog, they are less attached to us. I want to be the center of that hike. I want to be the absolute focus of that dog. Yeah. We are doing this together, you and me. We're the team. Mm-hmm. And that's why second season it works best, because you've got a whole season under a dog's belt where you've established that. Yeah. Now you can start incorporating him into some hunts with other dogs.
Right. But still be on the lookout for it, you think?
For sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, watch it. It should... I never look for anything dramatic. I just want to make sure the needle is going the right way. They're still young that second season. Yeah. I don't expect them to be completely – and some dogs just – and this is more of an individual's nature than an age. Right. They are completely oblivious to any and all other dogs.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. There are some dogs that –
they don't care.
They just wouldn't even –
Yep.
They wouldn't care if there was a pack of foxhounds out in the woods. They would just be looking for the bird.
Yeah. And another thing – to watch for is dogs are very perceptive, and if the other dog is a seasoned veteran and the youngster is a certain type of dog, will easily accept the role of, all right, I'm going to let that dog do all the work, and the easiest way to find birds is just kind of hang back and let him do the heavy lifting. And
well, I've heard people say that their dog will go to another dog's beeper collar. I've heard people say that.
Well, that's just a conditioned response. That means birds.
Right, yeah, so he's letting him.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's letting him, but he recognizes
that. He recognizes that, yeah.
But, I mean, if you watch, some dogs will gladly accept that role. They're professional backers. And sometimes they love to retrieve, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, and maybe they just got a little path of least resistance in their makeup, and okay, this is the easy way. Yeah. I'll just kind of go through the motions and be part of the hunt. But again, you can spot those a mile off because they never or almost never find their own birds.
Wow.
So the dogs should be finding birds each.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And if it's the other dog, always finding all the birds, and this dog never contacts any game, something's going on.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that can be going on, and this is another situation you should avoid if you've got a youngster, is if the dog that he's paired with is a sure enough real crackerjack, right? And this dog's just mopping the place up. Ping, ping, ping.
So he's not even going to get a chance.
You're robbing the young dog of opportunity. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You're taking away learning opportunities from the youngster.
Yeah.
He might come out of repeated hunts like that backing like a champ because he had a lot of opportunity to learn that.
Right.
But he's not learning to hone his bird finding skills.
Right.
Because the other dog's doing it all.
Right.
Yeah.
When you judge the trials, and those dogs are. Do they kind of stay away, like in a brace of dogs? Do they typically hunt on their own pretty good at that point? Like, how old are those dogs?
Well, it depends on what trials, but
the horseback trials that you.
Well, the handlers are on foot in the cover dog stuff. That's most of what I judge.
Okay.
Yeah. So puppies.
Yeah. Are they in a brace?
Everything's braced.
Everything's braced.
Puppies, derbies, and shooting dogs.
So they got to jump into this fray pretty early.
Oh, yeah, the brace mate thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, these guys prepare them for that. But somebody asked me one time, he had a puppy that was really bad at tagging another dog. That's kind of one of the terms used for it. They're always trailing along behind that
Do you
other
have a note
dog,
on your
following
judge's
them,
card?
tagging them.
Tagging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he says, how do you teach them not to do that? Birds, 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 birds. The reason he's doing that is because he's not looking for birds.
Right.
He's just got nothing better on his mind than I'm going to chase this other dog. It's play.
Right.
It's puppy play is
yeah.
what it is. We're just going to – it's like at the dog park. Let's always chase each other around. But
Yeah.
once they start to hunt, they should hunt. Right?
It just that's almost a given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really should. So, but they can't learn that if they're always with another dog.
Right.
And it's just counterproductive for a lot of. So, once they get some experience, try it case by case. And I always tell owners of 2 dogs this: invariably, you're going to end up in a situation where, and they've got a young dog, one of them. Either you both go on this walk, or one of you doesn't get to go today.
Right.
Okay, that's just life. Take them both. Or if you got an old one and he doesn't need the exercise,
Right.
let him sit it out.
Yeah.
But just make sure with that first season dog and even preseason with your puppies that you're prepping, you know, over half their field walks, half their
Right.
hunts should be by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, except for the maybe super clingy dog, or if you're trying to troubleshoot something weird.
Which is
with
probably a
dog,
whole nother.
real rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to the trial, say when you have, let's say, what's the older dog?
Shooting dog.
Shooting dog sticks. Do you ever see them pulling that stuff, or are they're on it? They're on their game.
Yeah. Once they're to that level, they are going to be typically 3 years old and up.
Yeah.
There's no 3-year-old on the planet should be dinking with another dog when it's time to
Yeah.
hunt.
Even if they cross paths, they're still going in 2 different. They're just doing their thing.
They should be.
Yeah.
You got to have, every now and then one might slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
But it's pretty obvious. You should notice.
Yeah.
Every time that other dog comes through, shortly, here comes the other one.
Right. Because you don't get to see them a lot of the time, right?
You're listening to bells. Depends on the
Right.
time of year. You
Yeah.
can see more in the spring. But, she's been dead a number of years now, but I really miss my old Roxy dog because she wouldn't tolerate it. Now, she was a female that was incredibly confident dog. That's the best word. I mean, when you watch this dog hunt, she's just exuding this guy.
She only needed to learn how to use a shotgun. She didn't need you.
I got this, right?
Yeah.
And that's how she lived her life. That's how she hunted. She was a really gritty dog. If she ever had a young dog tagging her, she wouldn't tolerate it. She'd wheel right around and she'd go right at him. She never put her teeth on another dog.
But just
her whole posture was, you knock that off. You go. This is my show. I'm going to go find my birds.
it's like kicking
all right?
someone off your front lawn.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you tap into
Wow.
what I got going here.
So she
leave me
almost
alone.
appeared to be owling, like, good wait.
Yeah, you knocked that. She would. She'd spin right. Or if that dog got too close to her, following her when she was
Wow.
hunting. And I loved it because I had a good constructive use for a dog
Sure.
like that, right?
Yeah.
No, that's better than anything I could teach that other dog.
And you
right?
can't make that. That
No.
just happens once in a blue moon.
I haven't had one since.
Wow.
And so every now and then you get the right dog, it'll take
Yeah.
care of itself.
But we don't want to count on that. We don't want.
No.
I don't want 2 people listening to go like, I think I got that dog.
No.
This is a question from me because of a listener wrote me a long email, so I'm breaking it down into a 3-word question. Sit. Why not? Why do I hear people say? And this person wrote about a trainer who told him, "Don't teach sit. Don't teach sit." He's got a Ryman setter.
It's been written forever in pointing dog, books and articles, and it's been passed around. You know what I love about that guy's question?
What?
It's one of the very, very few that begin with the right word. Almost every question tossed my way from these folks I'm training dogs for or doing evaluations or lessons begin with the word how. Everyone wants to know how. How do I do this?
Right.
How do I fix that? How do I teach them to not do this, right?
Yeah.
I want people to always be asking this guy's question.
Why? Why?
Always ask yourself why.
Yeah.
And when you're around people that are deeper in experience than you, that's what you want to try and glean from them. Why are you doing it that way? Why don't you do this? Because if all you're focused on in the hows all you're capable of is replicating something.
Yeah.
So that's fine if your dog goes just like that dog.
Right.
Right? So it kind of monkey see, monkey do, and if everything goes just so, okay.
He does it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, now some standard issue dog training techniques, command training techniques can be very well absorbed in the house.
Right.
But once you understand the whys of why these dogs do this, and why is this effective, why is this ineffective, when the whys are thoroughly known by a person when they're working with animals, the hows become easy. They just come to you.
Yeah.
Because you understand what's making them tick.
It's even just a different approach to learning, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So I want people to focus on the whys of all of this.
Right.
The more you can learn about the whys of what we're doing, the hows become super easy. So with this particular example, okay, the why of that is because sit is perhaps one of the easiest things to teach a puppy, a little food-motivated puppy. It's a very comfortable position for a dog to assume. And once that little pupster figures out that I get my treat when I sit down, and my new best buddy sure seems to be happy with me when I do that. They're more than eager to do it, okay? So the reason that little tidbit is passed along to people is if you really do a lot of it, every time that dog comes to you and people are practicing their recall, sit. When they're walking their dogs on a leash around the neighborhood and they come to a road crossing, when they stop walking, sit. The dogs become in condition that every time they're stationary, they think we want them to sit every time they're motionless.
They're figuring out.
You've inadvertently conditioned them to automatically default to sit anytime they're stationary. So whether we say sit or not, at a certain point, they just do it every time they stop movement.
Okay.
When they arrive to us, when they're on lead walking, anytime they stop, default to sit. The reason that happened is because it was out of balance. Every time we conditioned them to sit down every time they stopped moving. Fast forward to 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. Oh boy, I got to get after this whoa training, right? Because everybody's telling me, hey, you're going to need this dog to really know whoa. And I just bought the Upland Institute,
and I want to learn the whoa.
And we're going to have to work on whoa and steadiness. And they go teach whoa, and the dog stops, and boom, down his butt goes to the ground. He thinks he's done right because his entire life thus far, every time he's stationary, I'm supposed to be sitting.
And now you're going to have to start?
Well, no, you want to prompt him for you. Let's just be optimistic here. We're not going to let this happen. Okay. All right. But if it does happen, you just have to make sure that the dog understands I don't have to sit every time I'm stationary. How do we accomplish that? Balance. This is a classic case of a dog becoming unbalanced, and its training was all sit, never just stand. So like when I'm doing recall training with young dogs, I don't ask them to sit when they arrive. That's not what I'm working on right now.
Right.
It says you come to me and stay with me until I release. So let them stand when they come in.
Yeah.
But people, again, monkey see, monkey do. Everything they see in general companion obedience, when they come to you, sit.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you go to puppy school, which is good socially and a little structure.
With new dogs, go to those puppy schools.
I recommend them.
Yeah.
Because socially forces you once a week or whatever the schedule is. New place, around other dogs, other people, car ride, extra car ride.
Sure.
Good socially. And, which I'm huge on, it provides a little bit of structure. You're not going to come out of any one of those puppy classes with like this 5-month-old super obedient dog.
Right.
But you planted the seeds for the future. Dogs need to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
And you've put a little structure into their life. And you hopefully have learned some things, not just from what you're doing with your dog and the instructor, but also watching those other dogs and those people.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good point. That just made like a light go on. Like going to anything where there's a group of people with dogs.
Yeah.
Don't just
watch.
Don't just be watching your dog.
Yeah. Every Wednesday night, I think of you guys, and I
Going
think,
out
you know,
there.
I'm bringing a chair and a cold beer, and I just want to watch the bird field, right?
You don't.
No, I do, to learn.
know.
I will.
Yeah.
You can learn something every time, you know?
Yeah.
So you should always be watching what other people are doing because all these dogs are so very different.
Yeah.
So very different. And so it's a dog that is out of balance. If it's auto default to sit it's so easy to prevent.
Right.
All you have to do is teach the dog that sometimes it's okay to stand when you're stationary. Like
Right.
I've always just good manners at doors, teach them wait to be released to go through a door.
Right.
I don't make them sit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it got started with a real popular TV kind of dog trainer. This, you must go through the door first because that shows the dog you're the alpha. Okay? I don't think that's what's at play here. What's at play, and I don't go through first. I make that dog wait until I tell him he can go through.
Right. Whether you're
and stand, whether I go through or not. Sometimes I'm just letting him out to go to the bathroom or whatever.
Right.
So
you have no intention on going through the door, but
No.
you're still going to make them
wait. But I don't ask him to sit.
But yeah.
At least not every time.
Right.
You can sit is a handy command for people that live with their dogs as part of their family. I don't want people to not teach that. And you got to remember when this stuff got started, that piece of advice, that was back when bird dogs didn't live in the house.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that they didn't need it. They were kennel dogs.
Yeah.
So these trainers, I don't need him to know to sit.
Right.
But when you live with your dog,
Right.
it's a very handy command.
Sure.
So teach it, but keep your dog in balance by making sure a good percentage of the time they're taught, not necessarily even by command, just
Right.
that it's okay to stand until you're released.
Right. Yeah. Just don't go to default.
Right.
Every time you're even walking your dog or somebody comes, just don't lay on it so much.
Yeah.
Don't lay on that. So,
Yeah.
so I guess one of the things people have probably thought,
It complicates whoa training.
it doesn't complicate pointing.
No.
It shouldn't anyway.
No, it won't at all. Pointing's an instinct. This is a command.
This is-
People will
yeah.
sit down on point.
But for some reason, people always thought they're going to sit on point or something.
No, but you know when they will. They won't sit while they're pointing birds. Their pointing is going to keep them standing.
Right.
In a really severe case of this, what will happen is when you go, you'll have a bugger of a time completely working it out of them in your whoa training.
Okay.
Because any time that you make them, you reinforce whoa, the wiring already exists to default to sit.
Yeah.
So you're always tap dancing around that.
Right.
Sometimes you can get around it, but when the rubber meets the road and you go to a higher tier of steadiness in their bird work,
Yeah.
sometimes when you steady them to wing and they want to chase at the flush, but you're making them stay put.
Right.
They got this internal battle of wills going. Every fiber of my body wants to say
Yeah.
go, but my training says stay.
Yeah.
And then in their, back in their memory bank there, sit.
Yeah.
And they'll sit down on you. If it's a test dog or a trial dog, you're done.
Right.
Right?
Right.
If you're
Oh, yeah.
if you're a hunter,
Yeah.
well, it's not necessarily
the end of the-
proper.
it's
It's
not
not
the-
proper form, but it's not the end
It's
of the
not
world.
the end of the world.
He's not 150 yards over there chasing
Right.
that bird. And I will add this: oftentimes that is temporary, because once they've successfully achieved that level of steadiness and you start dropping birds for them again, the anticipation of now what comes next, going to be able to get it,
Right.
will keep them on their feet.
Right.
Now, this may take a season
Right.
to put all these
Right.
things together.
Right.
So often people, he said this would happen, and then this could happen, and then this would happen. And I've worked on this the last 3 weekends, and this isn't happening. I'm talking about a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the scope of this dog development and training is stretched out more than I think a lot of newcomers think.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just
Yeah.
a lot more months and years of learning.
But I love the fact he wanted to ask why.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Right.
I don't understand why.
And he did go to a trainer.
Yeah.
And he said the trainer was I don't think he said it was a trialer, but he's been around the area forever.
Yeah.
So he probably is that guy that's like,
Yeah.
don't teach your dog to sit.
Yeah. It'll complicate your whoa work.
Yeah.
Could potentially bleed into the advanced steadiness stuff when you're stedying to wing
But it
and
can
everything.
certainly make whoa
It's
work more difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll make it a lot. And,
Yeah.
last time, too, I was thinking, the other one that you hear a ton of, right along with why is with guys new to pointing dogs, don't let them catch any birds, right? You don't want them catching birds, right? So several times I've done this. Somebody else asked me that. Well, he caught a couple of birds, and I know that's terrible. I go, yeah, it's not what you want. But do you know why? And they can't answer that question. They've just heard it.
Right.
But it's okay. So this is why.
Yeah.
Right?
This is a why.
It's going to work against the development of the pointing instinct.
Okay.
And we talked about this last time.
Right.
Predatory instinct.
Right.
Caught birds are high-calorie food for the predatory instinct, which can overwhelm sometimes either dogs that have light pointing instinct or pointing instinct that hasn't been developed yet.
Right.
Right. So that's the why.
And you don't know in that dog if it's a light pointing instinct or just delayed, right?
Should know from his ancestors. However, genetics are a funny thing.
So it could be a dog that'll point fine later, but you don't want to take that chance.
So you're just early on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, this is another one that comes up. Bird contact for my young dog. Mm-hmm. It comes up on my Wednesdays a lot, and I always tell everybody my standard line. You don't be in a hurry. They're just got done with their shots, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And
gotcha.
Somebody goes, "Has your dog seen a bird yet?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, Gary, don't. They're just here to socialize and learn. Mm-hmm. But let's just say, in fact. Tana, the girl in Montana, I interviewed her. People love that interview with her. And she was adamant about like 16 to 20 weeks the dog has to have bird contact.
It's a nice window.
And then she emphasized, I think she doesn't worry about it that much after that. But she wants it in that, let's just call it, 5 months old roughly, right?
Between 4 and 5.
4 and 5 months old. But if my dog was born last season but too young to really hunt, and then I live up, if you looked at the demographics of my podcast, there's a big band in the upper Midwest that's full of dog owners and snow. They probably didn't think of taking the dog out in the spring for woodcock and grouse. What if my dog's 10 months old and hasn't seen a bird? Is that like sin to avoid?
Well, I would avoid it if possible.
Okay.
So I am very much on board with Tana that, okay, well-bred dog, well-socialized, lots of puppy walks from, say, 10 to 16 weeks, which are getting a little longer as the dog gets bigger and stronger, and he's absorbing more of that environmental stuff that's new at first, and now he's seen it all a bunch.
Yeah.
At about 16 weeks, he said, I'm ready to show him some birds.
Okay.
And the dog should be ready, provided those other things are
Provided he
normal.
just hasn't sat in the house and learned to sit for 16 weeks.
Because they're too overwhelmed with all the other new stuff.
Right.
Okay? So that dog is not ready.
Right.
But there's a wonderful window between 16 and 20 weeks there where it's pretty amazing what those dogs can start doing there. And I don't claim to understand it. Maybe somebody a lot smarter than me that knows about dog brains. I've seen that change at 20, between 5 and 6 months, 20 to 24 weeks. And then 24 on, the wheel starts turning again a little bit. There's a little window in there where sometimes things affect them that didn't when they were 4 months. Yeah.
And so describe, let's say, if somebody called you up and said, Justin, I listened to podcasts. I'm in that position. Showing them a couple pigeons while they're on a walk if they have pigeons, or do you want them to find a bird with their nose when they're that age?
Ideally find a bird with their nose, but I need to make sure that the dog, because I call it snake in the grass syndrome, some dogs are leery of things that are brand new that they smell for the first time in their life.
Like a bird flying all of a sudden.
Yeah. What was that? I've seen puppies kind of run the other way.
I've seen it.
Yeah. What was that? Well, that dog most likely hadn't clocked enough field time in general prior to
Probably.
that.
Hasn't even bumped into a butterfly enough.
Yeah, right? And then the ground just exploded over there.
Right.
Of course it startled him.
Right.
But so as I'm raising pups and walking them, I'm watching how they respond to other stimulus in the field.
Do they kind of poke into a thicker cover maybe?
Yeah, you should be coming across all kinds of stuff out there.
Right.
Does he notice the Tweety birds? Does he smell where rabbits have been?
Yeah.
Does he stop and root out a mouse nest? Does he get excited when he smells some of these things?
Right.
Or does the hair come up on his back and he slow down like, ooh, I don't know about this? The safe one is a visual only at first, got a pigeon.
Because I saw you do that with the Brittany puppies.
Yeah,
and you
just fly a pigeon and whoa.
And they were on their early puppy walks at that point.
Yeah, they get excited, chase them. But when it's all about bold and confident, and then I think it helps create the sense of purpose early. We talked about that a little last time. Bird contact for that. And the sooner they realize that's why they're put on Earth, the better.
Right.
And really wake up the use of that nose. A lot of these dogs, until they use the nose for that task, which requires that contact, they're sifting through 100 different scents out there.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's only through exposure that they start to become focused on that's what we're looking for. And I had an interesting question the other day. The guy, he's a dyed-in-the-wool pheasant hunter. Working his dog. He took a little lesson from me. And this time of year, what's available to people for off-season dog training in the pen-reared bird market is chuckers and quail.
Right.
He said, well, I mean, is it even worth me buying some of those since that's not what I'm going to hunt? I'm going to hunt pheasants. I thought about it. I go, fair question. Fair question. But he didn't understand that, they smell different. There's no question about it.
Right.
However, they're all game bird scent.
Yeah.
These dogs should be interested in all of them.
Right.
I always tell people, I mean, if you were taking a fresh shot grouse and shoved it in your face and smell, I like the smell of a fresh dead grouse. You ever do that with a woodcock? I can smell the difference.
Actually, no. I don't know why. Maybe because it's a woodcock. And
Okay, so if you ever find yourself in a situation on a hunt where you have one of each, take a big sniff of that rough grouse.
And if we could tell the difference.
Okay. Now the woodcock's kind of the oddball around the upland bird family. And then do the same thing to a woodcock.
Yeah.
You might not even get, I mean, they can stinky little thing. I can smell the difference, right? However, they must contain a very common thread amongst those.
Right.
I said if you order pizza from 3 different places.
Still pizza.
Yeah. They will smell different to you, but you recognize them all as pizza.
Aficionado.
Right. So just always be aware of how differently those young dogs sometimes are perceiving the world than us.
Yeah.
Because we know what we want them to be next year. They don't know that.
They have no idea.
Got to feed it to them one little thing at a time.
Right.
If you don't get that early bird exposure, all is not lost, okay? But I feel like we've left the door open a little bit there for maybe in that interim for the dog to find a different way to entertain himself when he's out there. Because you're probably still taking...
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes dogs start to run more than they start to hunt.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes dogs develop an interest in non-bird life out there. The wild card there is the timeless debate, nature or nurture.
Right.
Right. I think sometimes it's when when a bit of both of those come together just so to create things. The dog has a genetic predisposition to be a certain way, and then we inadvertently, in some cases, created the perfect environment for that seed to pop. Yeah. But get them thinking birds early. Now, there's the seasonality to it. And these puppies are born on every month of the calendar.
Exactly.
Breeders can't control the heat cycle.
Right.
Don't you love it when people go, I want to get my puppy in the spring.
Of course.
Yeah, well, don't we all?
Yeah, nobody wants to house train your dog in a foot of snow.
Yeah, and you know what? At the end, once you get adult dog, it doesn't matter, right? It's that first year.
Yeah.
When you have those midsummer born pups, they're not old enough to hunt this year, or even early summer born. But they're not old enough to hunt.
Right. You're not really taking it home till September, and he's 8 weeks old.
It depends on when they're born. But like my youngster right now was an early June born pup. She was tiny last season.
Right.
Lots of little puppy walks during the time we should hunt and everything. But so those kind of late spring, early summer born pups I don't want to wait until spring.
You don't want to wait till spring.
I don't want to
No.
wait till spring.
Okay.
So prior, if you live somewhere that you get a pretty good accumulation of snow depth, November, December, now you should be hitting that 4 to 5, 16 to 20 week old window.
Right.
Go get them into some birds. Somehow, some way, if you can.
If you want to have a bird dog, you make the effort to, even if it's a club.
Well, you bought the dog to hunt something.
Right.
So go there.
Go there. Right. Don't say, I can't get to South Dakota this year, so I'm not going to do it.
Well, here's the ultimate cop-out
Yeah.
is, he's not been introduced to the gun. So
what?
So what?
That's a big block with people.
It is. Well, that's all in their head.
Yeah.
It's 100% in their
Right.
head. Why would I pay a couple $100 for pheasants when I can't kill them?
But I paid $2,000 for the dog.
And listen, trucks, guns. You don't chintz out there on your puppy, okay? And you can pick up a pizza on the way home. You don't have to kill him.
To wrap that question, so early exposure, ideal.
Gets that ball rolling.
And then if you've got that, let's just say the scenario, okay, you've got some access to some birds. You've seen your dog point. He likes to chase a pigeon. You've seen some real bird love. Mm-hmm. Do you have to keep feeding him the birds, or can you just go to the field and the handling and the come when call? Or do you try to say, like, once, I know it's a funny question because you don't want to put a time, a date, or an amount on it, but would it be okay if you did something for another month and they didn't see birds then?
Yeah, I think a little more frequently would be good, provided they're good bird contacts.
Right.
There's stuff to work on in between and keep going with your runs. You should start seeing them a little different in their runs as the bird exposure starts to come along.
So keep it sprinkled.
Yeah, as long as until you get buried in snow.
Right.
And always have that awareness, too, that, I know some guys, it's knee-deep snow, and they're out there stomping a hole in there and don't do that.
that's especially with a young dog.
Find something you can do in your
Don't
garage
make a young
or your
dog's hunt
basement.
miserable.
Yes,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. All right, another topic, and this is something I feel like I've got data on because my hunting dogs, only one of them in 35 years has lived in the house. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say this kennel that I have currently is kind of like my house. It's my desk, my chair.
Yeah. And you have them loose in here
and
all the
I
time.
have them loose in here, so it's kind of like your house. But
this is kind of like your basement that isn't attached to where your wife lives.
Right, where I can smoke my cigars.
Yeah.
So my dogs, but the beauty that I think an advantage I have is when it's time for me to walk away, they all have to settle down and just use their, okay, it's not about us. Ron's not out here. They all just go, you look right now behind you, they'll all either be laying in the sun or they're laying there. And that house dog, do house dogs get too much stimulus and learn too many bad habits? Or, I mean, is it easier training a kennel dog than it is a house dog? It's a very blanket question.
It is, and there's so many variables there. The socialization still needs to be there early, right?
Right.
If you just have I don't like kenneling puppies, right? But I want a dog comfortable going both ways. So they need to start staying there on and off if you're going to
even some hours of the day.
Yeah, and so how you can replicate that with a home-raised dog is through that crate training. Continue that on even after housebroken. There's so much more going on with that. That's the kiss of death when a dog housebreaks quick and easy.
Right.
And the people abandon the crate.
Yeah.
Now that dog is almost becoming overly. It's getting this continual attention. From you, right?
That's what I was.
And so they're growing up.
Follow you to the bathroom. Follow you because they get a treat in the kitchen. Follow you to the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know how many times? He wakes me up at 5:15 every morning.
I've heard
That's a bunch of hooey, right? Unless you want to, you get up when you need to get up.
Unless
or want
you give the dog a cell phone.
Yeah, whatever. And so those are dogs that from the very beginning of every day until the very end of every day are demanding something from their human.
Right.
And then these people just get sucked in. What can I do for you right now? What is it that I can do for you, right? You're raising a very needy dog. Okay. So, and then when it's not all about them, which at some point in their life, it is not all about them.
Right.
They get a little pouty about it.
Right.
Well, you didn't prepare them. How many times, my dog doesn't like to go to the vet. Well, you didn't prepare them for anything new. That's your fault.
Right.
You know, they're not torturing them. There's basic medical care.
And usually the people there are so lovey-dovey to dogs. How would a dog not like going there?
Well, yeah. But it's because it's a different environment. My dog doesn't like this. My dog doesn't like that. You set that stage by how you raised him.
Right.
You didn't expose him to all these different places, and you've conditioned this dog to need you for everything in its life. So that's what my big thing on crate training is. That will condition a dog to be content and comfortable in his own time and in his own space. Yeah. It'll provide a balanced dog.
So if this house dog is, they crate train him as a puppy because they don't want poop and pee in the house, and they do this nice job.
Yep.
And then like, okay, he's not going to poop and pee in the house. Yep. Still use that crate.
Always.
Like, I'm going to I don't care if the kids are watching TV, my wife can still watch the dog. Put the dog in the crate and go about your business.
Yep.
And
I'll come back to you when I'm ready to do something with you.
Right.
But, you know, my entire life is not dedicated to being your servant.
Because I know some dogs personally that are.
We all love our dogs, but we want to raise them in such a way that there's a little bit of structure and a little understanding that a dog cannot act on every impulse it's going to feel. Right? It's allowed to do certain things at certain times.
Right.
And we are kind of the keepers of those things, so to speak, right?
We mess it up.
Yeah. Well, look at the parallels with children, too.
Oh, it's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a quick 12 months to a year for a puppy, and it's, let's say, 5 years for a kid. But there's little markers that are all the same.
You see kids that throw these complete meltdowns because they didn't get their popsicle.
Right.
And then other kids go, okay, maybe later. Or, come on, Dad, one
they
time.
Understand
they
maybe later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you know, that makes me think of the dogs. There's, when we go on to Wednesdays, this is another reason I don't want you to come there, but I want you to come there.
I do. I'm going to do it. I am.
There's dogs that'll be in their truck, and they just bark and bark. And I almost wonder, like,
loose, not in a crate.
Oh, no, even in a crate.
Okay, yeah.
I even wonder if that dog, only time it's in the crate is when it's in the truck going to the grounds, because his whole life is freedom. You know? Well, I can honestly say the only times my dogs bark in the truck is if one of them sees me walk away with the other dog. Yeah. And then it's just like they give up.
Yeah. So that's a learned behavior, and here's how that one happens. Is I don't care if you just went 10 minutes. Some of these people act like you just drove to Utah and back. I got to get my dog out. Just you get to him.
The truck stops.
Yeah. Boom. So that becomes the pattern.
So it's just a learned.
It's a learned thing. So like when I'm raising a puppy, as long as the temperatures are appropriate not a concern, okay?
Right.
I'll take my puppy to the grocery store. I don't let him out when I get in the grocery store parking lot.
Right.
I'm taking him just to take him, go for a ride.
Right.
And sometimes when we get somewhere, I let you out, but just as many times, I don't.
So that's the balance.
So that when you don't, the dog, this is normal.
This is one of the don't times.
This is what, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if it's always do times,
goes back to the
first time it's not.
It goes back to the sit thing.
Yeah.
The imbalance of.
It's not. Exactly. It's not balanced. Yes. Yes.
So well, that was good.
Yeah.
No, I think that was the last one I had on there. I think training, house, kenneling, dog. Yeah, assuming both dogs had some impulse control. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about that little structure, and so a kennel run is just a big crate, right, for temporary housing. Sometimes it can be their home, and then like both of us, got good size exercise yards off there. Okay, that's the backyard from the dog. The dogs kind of they have their own house, right?
They got their own house.
And they got their own yard and everything. And so there's no inconsistencies there, right? They can't find chinks in the armor in that environment.
And it's not like I thought about it. It's just what I did.
It's the way bird dog guys have kept dogs for a really long time.
In kennels,
yes.
Right. When I met Rick Smith down in Virginia, and I pulled up to his house, I was waiting to be greeted by a bunch of Britneys. And I get in his room, and I'm looking around. There's pictures of like him with Delmer and all these old pictures of field trials. It's just gorgeous man room, right?
Yeah.
And I go, "Where's your dogs?" He goes, "Oh, they're down the hill about 400 yards." He goes, "I don't want to listen to them."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he wants his little quiet place, right? That's his work.
And guess what? His dogs are also quiet because they're like, okay, he'll be here later.
Yeah.
And I walked down the hill with them. A couple of them barked. A couple of them said, I think they said, I wonder if this is we're getting out time or this is we're not getting out time.
Is he coming down to check the answering machine or?
Right.
Yeah.
And then we went back and I was like, I hope people take a good, I hope they remember that because I see a lot of dogs that just can't be in the truck, can't contain themselves sometimes. And I think
so
it is
crate
from
training
that.
and then getting acclimated to a tie-out stake. I know you guys do that at the grounds, right? Stake them out. That's huge.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those two things will help condition a dog. It's not always their turn. It's not always all about them. They don't always get to act on every impulse they have. They can't. There's times they can, times they can't.
Right.
Maintaining that balance. So nobody that owns a dog as part of a family companion should go out back and build a kennel run, right? They don't need to do that. But what you should do is take those common threads of concepts.
Right.
Okay? Justin, is it okay my dog sleeps on the bed? Anything's okay as long as it's put in your terms.
Right.
He can go out there when you allow it.
Right.
When you invite him up. Mm-hmm. And also, you should be able to tell him to get down. Now's not one of the times that I'm okay with you being up there.
Right.
So anything is okay with a house dog
as long as it's
as long as
balanced.
it's on your terms.
Yeah, in your terms.
Right.
Yeah.
So now they're looking to you. This is a key fundamental concept, the relationship you want to have with your dog.
Yeah.
They're looking to you for permission to do things that they want to do. Right?
Just like kids.
Just like
Is it
okay?
kids.
Yeah, is it okay if I do this?
And I would almost
and
say
if you
just
say
like-
no, no is no.
Almost just like toddlers almost.
Yeah.
You know that.
They're not. None of them are going to be perfect, but
No.
we want to at least put the concept in there.
Right. I told people, I said, I mean, did you get dragged to church when you were little?
For a brief window of childhood, and my mom tells me, I have vague memories. My mom tells me you would spend the hour looking out the window.
Were you
looking
quiet?
outside. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember the pretty stained glass.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that was cool, and I would.
But something our folks did to get us to sit through that hour.
Candy?
I hope not.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just that because I've seen when I ended up having kids later, which was obviously a long time before you did. So we went to this church here in Muskegon, and they had a cry room, and it was filled with parents and their toddlers, and 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds, off to the side with a glass panel and a speaker so they could hear the pastor. I'm like, how come we didn't need cry rooms when we were little? How come we had impulse control enough? What did our parents do?
Because your parents were going to give you the business if you acted up like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was also from a solid structure, probably of, you know, you're not sleeping in my bed. You're gonna when you put a baby to sleep the first time and they're alone, they cry. You let them cry it out, right? There's a lot of similarities in, you know, a kid that you can take somewhere and not be embarrassed by, and the dog that you can take somewhere and not be embarrassed by.
They're all going to protest things at first.
Yeah.
And it's important that we allow them to have that and experience
You're talking
it.
to dogs now.
And yes. Yes. You know, they're going to protest that stuff. Look at the first few times in a crate for a little pupster. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Christ. But
Sounds like they got their paw in the door.
yeah, and okay, but then they should accept that. And it's our job to not. A protest from a puppy is not a call to action from us.
That's a good
okay?
line, yeah.
Yeah. Just let him digest that. Let him feel those feelings. Let him ride it out. Let him realize the whole world isn't ending here right now. And we're pretty non-reactive to that. It doesn't sway us. And so we don't go running over to reassure him, you know.
Right.
And on that, I helped a guy with a couple phone calls, and he's having this nightmare problem. Well, ask enough questions. You know what the problem was? The puppy crate was right next to their bed in their bedroom. Well, of course he won't quiet down. You're right there. And oh, my wife, she brought treats and would tell him it'd be okay. No. Right? I bet he kept barking.
Oh, sure
he was
he would.
wearing you
I'd
down.
keep barking if that's how I got my stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
What did you bring over? Did you have a couple of?
Well, I'm trying to, I wanted to make sure we included some things that were timely as we're, because
seasonally timely.
hunting season is
very soon.
It is, however, I still consider this kind of the heart of training season because there is adequate time to have to do something more prior to it's time to hunt.
Right.
And I guess also realize that doesn't mean training time ends on opening day. Right. Training continues. There's not a line in the sand there. Okay, training's done. Now it's hunt.
Right.
No, you are going out forward. The only difference is you have live ammo now after a certain date.
Yeah.
So you want that. You want that to bleed into everything you're working on right now. Mm-hmm. You should be carrying that through on into the season. So you want to be sure that whatever you're working on is solid enough to begin to implement actually on the job. And if you're not quite there, hold off trying to. Remember, you ever go back to an early non-negotiable, don't be given commands that you can't follow through with.
Right.
So you got to know exactly where you're at in your training, and you will get into situations hunting that are beyond that.
Yeah.
Because training, you're in this kind of bubble, right?
Yeah.
That you've created, and you're structuring things to accomplish a certain purpose, okay? So know when you're outside of where the zone your dog is in. You know when to be quiet. You can fight that battle another day.
Right. On that subject, though, let's say a person's working on his field handling and using a check cord a lot.
Yeah.
And he's working on, let's say, he wants a good come when call command. Uh-huh. That would be something in hunting season that if he feels in his training bubble, his yard, maybe the training grounds on Wednesday, he's got a good come when call. Should he work on that while he's hunting?
100%.
I mean, just even if nothing's happening, just every once in a while, just work on that while they're hunting. At the possible cost of, I think he was getting birdie. I mean, obviously.
No. Always err on the side of caution there because that.
Know what he's doing.
Well, you 100%.
Yeah.
And what you're looking for is something surely during the course of your hunts. It's going to be one click beyond what you've prepped him for.
Yeah.
There's where you want your right there. Okay, I'm going to do a recall now.
Right.
Or whoa, or whatever it is.
Right.
We've just broadened his scope a little bit.
So now he's doing a little learning while he's hunting.
Now he's hunting.
Yeah.
You just got into some birds. There's another dog, another gunner or whatever. That's too big a jump for him. Don't even try it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So always have on your radar, where are these situations that are coming up in the real world? That's a good time to practice that. The other thing that's wonderful once we get into the cooler part of the year is we can begin to work these dogs and start working on some of this stuff at the 1 hour mark in a hunt. The 90-minute mark in a hunt, okay? That's a whole nother animal than fresh out of the truck.
Right.
Problem in the summertime is
you may not only be out very long. If
they're
it's
warm, it's hot,
yeah.
You've done whatever you set up to do, session's over.
Right.
It's kind of like they get the edge off, do something quick, hot or whatever, it's done. So some things can be accomplished that way, but the dog never really gets in a groove. I love not a puppy, but a dog that's physically strong, so let's just say 1.5 years old, right?
Yeah.
You know what'll grow those dogs up that first season? Steady diet of some good 3-hour hunts.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But now with breaks.
Everything,
right?
Yeah.
Cool temperatures.
Right.
Packing some water.
Sure.
Let's go hunt for an hour. And we'll take a break at 40 minutes.
Right.
And then maybe halfway through, we're going to take a good break. Like comfy spot to sit down, let their breathing come all the way back down to totally normal. Let's go hunt for another 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now you're really kind of making a dog, I feel, when you do that. Now I want to make sure I'm loud and clear on one thing. if at the hour mark your dog is walking along at your side, please don't keep going, because Justin said 3-hour hunts. Okay, this is
good idea.
I just want to throw that out there.
That's a good disclaimer.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the disclaimer. No, it ain't in the cards. I don't know.
But those dogs that want to keep going,
Yeah.
it's
Hunt 'em.
Hunt them.
Hunt 'em.
Yeah.
You know, once you're out there, I love those big, long hikes.
Yeah.
I do. And I feel when the conditions are right and the dog is in shape and you're prepared to do it, there's a lot of value to that for a dog, too.
Yeah.
They kind of, they truly settle in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They got to find that work gear in the middle.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it gives them time to really get focused and on track.
Maybe that's why we always find the birds on the way back to the truck.
Maybe.
You know,
I don't know.
It's sometimes a coincidence, but, sometimes that first bit of a walk is a bit of a run for the dog.
Yeah. And then, you're talking about like reinforcing some field handling stuff as you hunt for the first, time since you've taught this stuff, okay, regardless of how old the dog is.
Right.
You've taught it in the off season. Now you're starting to slip it into real hunts.
Right.
Okay, it's another place where the word balance comes into play. You want to keep the dog's drive, desire, the opportunities to learn how to become good bird finders balanced with those control commands. So sometimes to gain some field obedience, we don't want to give too much there, because the end of that road, every time he goes to show some initiative,
Right.
if you're snubbing him,
Right.
because you don't want him to go that far, or you don't want him to go that.
know.
I'm big
Yeah.
on going forward. Don't
Right.
go back where we've already been.
Right.
But if you're going forward, and you're not leaving me, running off, right?
Right.
Go learn something.
Yeah.
Right. If you're checking in,
Yeah.
a dog needs to go with you.
Right.
Okay. We want a dog that's very much connected to
Right.
us and going with us. If they're in a forward fashion, go look for some birds up there.
I know
That's your
quite a
job.
few people that are afraid to let their dog get out far, and I don't know if it's their. I know one guy in particular, my friend in Virginia. He's like, he gets nervous, like if the dog is, and he's always hacking this dog back in, always hacking the dog back in.
When you hack a dog when he's trying to hunt and learn to hunt,
Yeah.
they have to mentally shift out of hunt mode into obedience mode. Now, as they come along, you watch the veteran dogs, they hear you and they respond.
Right.
And they don't shift out of gears like the young dogs do.
Right.
So, but you keep that up with a youngster, what you have is a little obedience robot who's no longer really focused on finding birds.
Right.
Because he's too worried he's going to get in trouble, especially if all that hacking is backed up with correction.
Yeah.
Now we've dinged his confidence. We don't ever want to dent that young dog's confidence. So sometimes you got to give a little in the perfecto prompt obedience to gain something in the hunt.
Because that's as important as anything.
This is all a balancing act, okay? So we want to gain that field obedience. You got to know when. Give him his head right now. Yep. Yeah, it's further than I want him to go. Yeah, just let him have
But he's
that
not doing
moment.
anything wrong.
He's not doing anything wrong.
He's hunting.
Yeah, just let him have that moment.
Right.
Okay, and then reconnect, and we'll go on.
Yeah.
These changes should be taking place slow, you know. But don't take too much out of a dog for short-term handling response game. But you don't want to stagnate in your training either. Therein lies the art of all this, right?
Yeah.
Progressing forward without any negative side effects from your training showing themselves. And that's all about being aware of and maintaining that balance. Something that ties into that, certainly on some people's plate this summer training has been e-collar conditioning.
Yeah.
To reinforce certain things, okay? And I feel like hunting for the life of a dog without incorporating e-collar conditioning is irresponsible risk, right? You're putting those dogs' life on the line. In the real world, there's hazards and dangers.
Right.
So that's just my opinion.
Even if that's the only time you'd use it,
Well,
it should be
if it ain't
understood.
there, it's like insurance. You're driving that truck of yours with no insurance. Of course you're not.
No,
right?
no, ain't
You're
gonna
probably
do it.
never going to need it. But the
Right.
same thing. So to make sure that we don't have any negatives from e-collar usage, I'm an advocate of a proper introduction to this collar so the dog understands things. This
Right.
is not random ouch. okay?
Right.
And so the groundwork is all laid, good old-fashioned check cord, leash work, whatever it is, and then once that's been learned.
Once that language has been learned.
Yes. Then you overlay your e-collar stim.
Right.
Oh, that's the same as this. And
Right.
okay, pressure on, pressure off. We're not going to get into the specifics of
Right.
collar conditioning, but that needs to be done in a measured fashion before you start, pushing buttons during hunts, okay?
Yeah.
With the exception of something like a deer chase
Right,
or
right.
whatever. But for command reinforcement. So don't skimp on that part, that true measured collar conditioning, because then when you do need to use it, your dog understands it. Now, I'm also, when I work with people, preach that those initial collar conditioning needs to be on that lowest level that the dog can feel.
Right.
He already knows these things that we're overlaying it to use. And we're just teaching him when he feels the stim, this is what you do. A lot of it's pressure on, pressure off.
And they'll remember.
They'll remember, when I do this, that's what turns the collar off.
Right.
I hear this, it comes on. If I don't respond, I do this. The dog is in control, and they're in control of the collar.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
They need to understand that. It's just about everybody's familiar with the invisible fences now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, everybody understands how those work. Approach the boundary that you've taught, right? Warning tone from the collar, that's our command.
Right.
In a different scenario, collar comes on, we teach the dog how to shut that collar off. Go
Right.
back in
He
the
backs
yard,
up a little
collar
bit.
comes off,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So to apply that same principle to your command usage here, right, we have to show this dog. And they don't turn the dog loose and start, letting it get shocked and hope it does what you want.
Right.
But bird hunters do that all the time with their
they do.
e-collar use, right?
they do.
And sometimes they con themselves into thinking it worked because, ouch, that hurt. I'm going to run back to my buddy. Got his attention, told him to come, and I pushed him. Nah, he wasn't collar conditioned for
Right.
one call.
Probably wasn't even.
You just hurt him, and he came running to his buddy.
Right.
So don't do that. Okay, now one thing, we're on this lowest level they can feel because we're conditioning them how to respond. Okay. You absolutely are not going to go that dog's entire hunting career where you're going to get response on that level.
Let's just say 3 for a
Whatever
number.
it is.
Whatever it is.
One,
Yeah.
two, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
That's the lowest level he can feel. Okay?
Right.
It's not going to do it for life. Okay? Prior to going hunting, where it's a reasonably fair statement, you're going to go a click up. You're going to have to go from a 1 to a 2 or
Whatever,
a 2 to a
yeah.
3. Don't let that be the first time
While you're hunting.
while you're hunting.
Yeah.
Build your baseline with those super low levels, lowest he can feel, which is a different number for
Right.
every individual, okay?
Right.
And then prior to hitting the field and considering this dog is truly collar conditioned, I'm going to bump up a little bit. Not into dramatic, ouch.
Yeah.
But
But
I
like, ooh,
want,
that's a little more than I
ooh.
felt before.
Now, this is the true test of how good a job you did. The response should be quick. I know how to make that go away. And he should do it real quick, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, sometimes in the heat of battle, you might, hunting, right?
Yeah.
This isn't training. Now we're hunting. You may have to go up from there. We got some crazy thing going on. This dog's chasing a herd of antelope towards the
Turkeys,
highway,
whatever, yeah.
right? We're going to have to go up. If he's only felt the lowest level he can feel, and you didn't proof him with that middle level, finish your collar conditioning with just a little warmer.
Right.
Okay? And now you're up in, and that didn't do it in the situation.
Right.
You're, you're up high. I've seen dogs that can carry a negative from that. And that's our
Okay.
fault. We didn't really prepare them. And the command response, well, it'll often, throw the command response, whether it's reinforcing whoa or something. An overstimulated dog is either going to shut down or come to you.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you haven't done a good job on your collar conditioning and you needed a stronger level. So I feel like you can prevent that by purposefully, briefly making sure going back through everything
Right.
with an uncomfortably warm level, just a little bit,
Right.
and make sure that, okay, this dog does indeed have that.
Right.
Kind of call it the Goldilocks level. You got to find that Goldilocks level. This one, that's super duper light.
Yeah,
This
right.
one,
That's
that's
hot.
too much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You want that middle one.
Right.
Don't let hunting be the first time you explore that
a
area
good
of
tip.
stim, and do not kid yourself that you're going to get through this dog's whole life with tone and vibrate. Ain't going to happen.
Right.
Okay? And you are doing your dog a disservice by only using those things
Right.
and not conditioning him to the low-level stim, because if you think that tone or vibrate is going to curb a real bird dog with a burning desire and a big old heart to hunt in him,
With his eyes on a deer running to the highway.
it's not going to happen. And now your only way to reinforce something or save his life or keep him safe, and you just made him scared.
Right.
He doesn't understand why.
Right.
There was no, it could be anything.
Yeah, it's just not fair to the dog.
It's not fair to the dog. But it's a real feel-good person I feel like nowadays about half the people when they buy a puppy, they get a T-shirt, I only use the tone or vibrate. It's a feel-good thing for the human being.
I hear it. I hear it a lot.
It's not going to suffice for the life of the dog.
Right.
Okay? And I feel like you still, even if you're getting a response, okay? People need to get their heads around this concept that these collars are so adjustable now. They're invisible check cords. If you build them right, it's not a quick weekend project, right? It's going on over months and months and months. And it's an invisible leash. It's on your dog all the time. There's dangers out there.
Right.
And tone and vibrate isn't going to keep your dog safe in all those situations. That's why you need to condition them to the stim. If you want to go forward into the field knowing I am prepared as best I can be to handle things that can and do crop up during the course of the hunt. So take that extra step. Some people make, it's just a tiny bit of tough love for their own good.
Right.
And I'm not talking about like major reaction from the dog, or certainly no vocalization, nothing like that.
Right, no kaya.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Just a little more than what you trained them with.
That you did that initial condition. Make sure they experience that, and that's your real test of do they really understand how to shut that off.
You'll see they're going to turn it off
right
quicker.
Away. Right away.
And a turn or a come when called is a good way to check that.
Sure.
I mean, because you can visually, you wouldn't do either of those without a visual on the dog.
No. That's why we're going to do it in training before we hunt.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
Always be prepared. The only other thing I had, I think we kind of, I don't know if we got into this a little bit, but everything goes pretty good. There's a lot of good information out there, and when a dog goes right down the path, the genetics are there. Somebody's done their job. They've done things right. They're working at this.
Right.
They're doing this, okay? Even when you do all those things, sometimes a dog deviates from the norm, right? Mm-hmm. We all kind of, when we get a puppy, we got this little bit of a plan, right? Yeah. And the dog isn't always going to walk down that path for you. So whether we created a problem, whether the dog has a genetic problem, whether we missed an opportunity, whatever it is, we are in the situation where something's not right. Okay? Now, when we've thrown out the open Q&As in the past with you, and I did with Nick, I would get these great questions, but a lot of them are coming from the troubleshooting perspective.
They are.
Right.
They're not coming from the why.
No.
They come from, what do I do?
I got a mess, right?
I got a mess.
Well, so I love this. This is going to tie back into the why. So, okay. Step one, stop whatever you're doing. Okay. You cannot troubleshoot a problem until you have an accurate diagnosis. Mm-hmm. That's 100. I don't care if it's a mechanic fixing your truck. I don't care if it's your family doc, whatever it is.
Yep.
No positive action steps can happen until you have an accurate diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So if you're got something funky going on with a dog right now, don't just take your best guess, okay?
Yeah.
Really think about this, and that's going to involve asking some of the whys.
Right.
Why is he like this?
Right.
Why is he doing this? Okay.
Might even take a little soul searching.
Is it in his genes? Is it something I did?
Right.
Is it something I didn't do? God, let's just sit back. There's no rush, okay?
Right.
And fairly assess what's going on here. If you need to, reach out to somebody that's got a little more experience than you. However, they're going to lean on you because you're the one who lives with this dog. You're the one who's done all this other stuff with the dog. It's not fair to judge a dog on one little snapshot.
Right.
You know, how many times you've seen somebody's hunted with a guy's dog once, and he'll either brag the dog to the moon or bash him, right? I can't stand either of those, right? You don't really know the dog. You know, yeah, he might have been.
I can't stand a bragger worse, but I don't like either on myself.
I don't either, because that's one little snapshot of that dog. You don't know that dog.
Well, they always say, don't brag on your dog till he's dead anyway.
And as my friend Dennis says, and everybody who ever hunted with him is also dead. Very important. Okay? His dog is gone, and so is everybody who ever hunted with him.
Yeah.
So that, if you got something funky going on, do nothing until you feel like, okay, I got a firm grip on what the problem is, how the problem came to be.
Yeah, try to figure that part out.
Genetic issues, environmental issues. You've come to some sort of a lot thing that makes sense. You can get your head around, yeah, I think that's probably, you got to understand the whys. Okay, now structure a plan.
Right.
Right? And almost never is it a one-step thing.
Right.
Right? Figure out, what do I need to change?
And so, this is a really just a snippet of a piece of that, I think. If you're in some training mode, whether it's retrieving or come when called, if you're going to like hit the reset button, so to speak, and analyze, what did I do wrong or what's wrong? Is that one of the times where you want to go to another piece of property or another area for the dog?
Yeah, if a dog's getting punky about something, that's between their ears, right? They could get sour for a variety of reasons.
Right.
Okay. Fresh location is always good.
It's never a bad idea.
It's never a bad idea.
I had a little wire hair pup that,
if something's not going well, you can use, if things are going good, that familiar location can be a positive.
Sure.
Something's
they
going
might do the best
wrong,
performance.
Right. Okay, build that there and then apply it elsewhere. But if something ain't going right, you got something bad, starting fresh. And on that note, don't go to that fresh spot and burn it with a no-fun training session the very first time.
Right.
Okay? It's common sense to some people.
Don't go there to find the problem again.
Exactly.
Right.
So don't go there and do exactly what made the problem in the other place.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to start fresh, back off.
Yeah.
You got to know when to give a dog a break. These dogs aren't designed to all work and no play all the time.
I had a little female wire hair that almost described to a T. I had run a natural ability test and didn't know anything about this stuff, right? So the dog pretty much was doing what he did from his parents, right? And we passed. Yeah. Then I got my second one. I'm like, I did more birds, and I did more this and more that. And all of a sudden, about 2 weeks before, the dog didn't even want it. I kept bringing it out to the same place, and I was probably even trying to woe it too, you know what I mean? I was just giving it too much, and that dog stopped pointing. And I had apprentice my first day of apprenticing for NAVDA in Indiana, about central Indiana. And I had signed her up for the test to run her one day and apprentice one day. And I went in there going, this is going to be kind of embarrassing because I'm going to have a dog that doesn't point. And she went down and pointed every bird. Yeah. It had nothing to do with me. It was a different situation. And she went down there, and I was like, oh my God, she can't point again, right? Yeah. But didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing too much of something. And she was telling me, like, this is boring or whatever. And I think maybe because somebody else planted the birds and it was a new field, but I didn't really learn a lesson until in hindsight years later. Yeah, well, you had a clean slate. Yeah. And you got to see the dog's true genetics again. Yeah. There was no memory there. Right. Of all that other stuff that had taken place. There's situation and location thinkers and learners. Yeah. So when you showed up to the same old, that dog steps out into that venue and it's got all these memories there. Yeah. Right? And some of them must have not been good or something, or it started playing almost to the point of blinking sometimes. Yeah. So that's a negative, right? Yeah. Yeah. So the dog had gotten the right. But I didn't learn the lesson that day. Right. I was just amazed. Yeah. And then later on in life, I'm like, I was overdoing. But I wish I could think clear enough or had notes of like, what was I doing with her? Because she was pointing really good early, and I was like, it was like too many birds, maybe I was even probably shooting over too much or something. I don't know what it was, but usually if I see something go south and pointing and Is it from a early steady work?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
the most common cause for something going wonky with a young pointing dog's pointing.
So they're like,
is the push.
I'll turn it off by not pointing.
It's just they're just you take something out of them. That is something that requires a lot of a dog mentally to accept this motionless control, mental control in the presence of birds. When you're asking that of a dog that is this, gung-ho pupster, right?
Yeah.
Let him be that gung-ho pupster for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay? But isn't it human nature that people want it now? It's getting worse. It's getting worse fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
That something's got to give in a dog, and if you're determined enough and bound to do this, you can grind it into any dog, but it's going to come at a cost.
Right.
And that cost is not good. Something's going to give, and you saw it in that puppy.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't when you saw that dog smell a bird, you went, "This ain't right."
Yeah.
And well, maybe she stood there, but it wasn't pretty, was it?
Oh, no.
You don't ever want. That's not why we have these dogs. That's not what you
it
want.
was like ashamed.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, because you did that.
Right.
The dog wasn't like that before you tinkered with her.
That was all me.
That was all you, and you knew that. And it wasn't a positive, even though she might have held longer, right? But that quest for that super early steadiness will cause more pointing problems than anything else.
Yeah.
These dogs will tell you when they're ready. They need a certain amount under their belt before we ask them to accept that.
Right.
And trying to ask some super young dog, he hasn't even hunted yet.
Right.
Let him get in the game a little bit, right? There's a time and place for that. And I think I said it last time. All I care about is what people have at 3 years old. If you started with a puppy,
right?
That's the time.
Don't tell me what you got at a year.
Dog.
Whether it's a problem or a pride.
Yep. Just everything's in a state of flux before then, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get bonus points for this. That's what a lot of this is. People are kind of like a little bit of pat themselves on the back going on there.
Oh yeah,
right?
A lot.
Yeah. Look at my 4-month-old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's get together later or whatever. Good for you. Yeah. But it's not worth what a dog sometimes mentally has to give up.
Right.
To do that. And the more you push, and you are pushing, even if you don't think you're, like if somebody says he's putting a lot of pressure on that dog, that can be a lot of different things. Doesn't mean somebody manhandles a dog. That's not the only kind of pressure.
Right.
There's a lot of mental pressure on that dog.
Yeah.
And that'll have an effect.
Yeah, I don't think people think about that mental pressure on the dog.
All kinds of different pressures.
Yeah.
Okay? And everybody knows if somebody's Mr. Tough Guy, rough stuff, holy smokes, he put a lot of pressure on that dog. First of all, there's no need to do that to train a dog.
No.
When you train a dog, you work with their mind. Don't try and muscle them into doing what you want. Teach them.
Right.
Right? Well, you can only teach, you can't teach a 7-month-old to act like a 3-year-old. You can't. He will get there. He will get there. But do you know how many problems, they're not problems, but perceived problems with young dogs?
Like all the questions we filter.
Tons of them. And the bread and butter of my day-to-day work, these dogs are under 18 months old.
Right.
They're all puppies.
Right.
Those are all puppies in my eyes. They're adult frame bodies, but they're puppies. Okay, a lot of them.
Their frontal cortex is not developed yet.
And it's like, he does this, he does that, and I normal.
But they come to you.
Oh no, the sky is falling. He does it totally normal. Your old dog behavior.
You don't even blink an eye inside.
Blink an eye. Expect it. Yeah, and.
You got to develop a hell of a poker face for customers.
Yeah, well, some of them look relieved when I tell them that's normal. Oh, really? Yep. Yeah. Now, it's amazing how many of those will, and you should be working them and working on this, but even a little bit of this here and there, you don't have to go bonkers in 2 months. Better to just pick away at them a little bit at a time. Mm-hmm. Many of those things that you found frustrating with that young dog or irritating.
Right.
Just melt away slowly between 1.5 years and 3. Mm-hmm. And 3.5, right in there. Because 3 to 4, we have a young adult. Okay?
Yeah.
4 to 6, we have a true mature adult dog. From 4, usually, right?
Yeah.
But it's sometimes 2.5 for the girls, 3.5 for the boys, but usually somewhere in there, 2.5 to 4.
Yeah.
You just go, they don't do that anymore. They grew up. That's what happened. They grew up.
A fellow wrote me the one that had this rhyme, and it was "and the sit question" came from.
Yeah.
Also, in fact, it was from DeCoverly. I've heard that name.
Yeah, Big Kennel's been around a long, long time.
And he asked me. He said, I went to a guy who trained my short hair 20 years ago. Then I went to a guy from Orvis who trains dogs. And then I went to DeCoverly. And he wrote me this long email, and he says, what do you think I should do? I said, go with the people who know the dog and the breed.
Sure.
But he took the dog to this other trainer, and he wanted to throw a wing clip chucker for it. I'm not quite sure. I don't have any data why the trainer wanted to do that. Maybe he wanted to just see what the dog's reaction was.
See if he got
and the dog got
or,
the bird, and the dog almost ate it by the time they got to him. And he was in a dither. But that's one of those problems you've covered in questions before. It doesn't mean that dog's going to be eating birds the rest of his life.
Go away.
It's just a puppy thing.
Yeah.
I
mean, if he has all this stuff has so many genetic ties. I had a nice conversation this morning with a friend of mine who is a trainer and a breeder and just a really good dog, man. I mean, this guy knows he's the real thing. Okay. And, we can commiserate with each other.
I was just going to say, that was the word coming off my commiserate, like two old veterans talking about the war.
And, especially this time of year and some of this stuff we deal with, when you get them dogs that are bred right, this is fun.
I'll bet.
But
it's like a coach when he gets the kid that wants to be on the team.
It's about that talent and the mind that dog has.
And
that's
in their already genes. There for you as a trainer.
Man, is it fun? And then some of these other dogs, it's like it should not take a 4-month Herculean effort to get a dog to hold a point. Okay, it shouldn't. But they're out there. I see them all the time.
Right.
Okay, that's to me. That's room for genetic improvement.
Right.
Okay. And both him and I are talking about, these certain lines we know and some dogs that he's got mutual friends of ours breed and stuff. It's like, it's pretty rare you get one of them out of the box and just stick their birds and let you walk in and flush them.
Right.
With no training. It's just in their genes.
Right.
Okay. Well, so like them other kind of dogs, man, that feels like work. That feels like a lot of work.
Right.
And it is, to do something that should be pretty basic, you know. And some of these people would be really best served to make sure that you know what you're getting in your puppies.
Yeah.
Now those other dogs, to go with my example, right? It's a Herculean effort to get them to hold a point. They're way better than them other kind at recovering cripples.
Yeah,
that's more in their genes.
Yeah,
right. They're more recovery kind of dogs.
Yeah.
With a little point.
Yeah. Well, a small Munsterlander was a great example of that. All the years I started judging in NAVDA.
Yeah.
You could count on a small Munsterlander to get a top score in tracking.
Okay.
You could also count on him to point about 2 inches from the bird for about a half a second sometimes.
Yeah.
The balance wasn't there of. I've seen it get way, way, way better.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I don't hardly see it.
Well, breeders have a tough job. Genetics are, it's half science, half art. You got to have a super high level of awareness.
Right.
And you have to be, this is difficult. You got to be super objective about your dogs,
Yeah. I've told so many people, new people, and I know people have wrote me and thanked me to read Bob Whaley's Wing and Shot.
Sure.
Because he talks a lot about that, like
smart guy, and
the way
he
he looked at his dogs, the way he developed them, and the way he watched. He was asking a lot, but most people can't do that in a lifetime. Well, he could have that many litters in a year.
Well, it's a numbers game, right?
Right. That's exactly.
When he had the resources, the means to do it.
Right.
Which most breeders
don't have. He could get there.
He could get there. Right.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah.
But
you got a minority breed, and you breed once a year.
Yeah.
It's hard to develop it's even hard to, you could probably find the genetic faults.
Especially when you're forced to make your selection at 8 weeks old.
Yeah, right.
Because
are you good? Because
what time is it?
4:43. We went. You said
again. Sorry for all my babbling.
No, but I know you said you were going to pick up your daughter.
Yeah, I got to leave. I probably got 10 minutes.
Okay. Gosh darn it! What was I just going to say?
We're talking about
the minority breeds. Yeah. They don't have the amount. Like if you bring in a new breed to this country, whatever it is, let's say there's 300 of them here, and there's a couple people breeding it.
Yeah,
they're up against it.
Sure.
They don't have that much data.
No, well, not only that, say you do have that magic 2.5-year-old female.
Right.
This is what we want. Mm-hmm. Who are you going to breed it to? Do you have that its male counterpart that will complement it very well? Mm-hmm. Because that's what a mating should be. They should complement each other. You shouldn't be trying to compensate. Those are two very different things because you don't get a 50-50 blend of mom and dad. Mm-mm. When you breed to a dog, you got to eat the whole bowl of soup. You can't just pick out the parts you like, okay?
Right. Unless you're willing to keep 8 dogs.
And do it again.
And do it again.
And do it again. That's what we've counted on those who have come before us to do.
That's what Whaley did.
God bless the breeders who keep doing it, right? That's why we continue to have more good dogs available to us.
I'd say we really
more
do.
good dogs, but it's a tough gig.
Right.
It's a real tough gig.
Yeah.
But a lot of these things have genetic roots, and so when some of these dog things that people aren't crazy about, you can't rewire a dog's genetics with training, so don't beat yourself up thinking you're doing something wrong. Just accept that, okay, possibly I can arrive at an acceptable improvement via training. Okay, but I don't care how long you leave him with a super great dog trainer.
Yeah.
When you pull out of the driveway, he doesn't, have some secret cabinet that's locked. This is the crippled pheasant tracking software package I'm going to install for $7.99
and put the chip under his skin.
No, okay. You got to work. You got to do the best with what you got to work with. None of them are perfect at everything.
Right.
Train with your head and bring them along slow and make improvements where you can. And above all else, pour the experience to them.
Yeah.
That's the best teacher of all. We put the framework there, teach them what we can, and then experience.
Because genetically, you already got what you got.
But it needs that time to blossom. It does. Yeah. That's the right word.
Right.
Because that's exactly what it is.
Right.
And that instinct needs to breathe. It needs maturity there.
Right.
And seasoning, right?
Yeah.
Remember we said a well-seasoned dog.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to get to. That takes time. So don't go pushing the panic button with a puppy.
Yeah.
He's not what you see here and now. It's not forever.
Yeah.
So the dog that ate the wing clip chucker, he's not going to eat birds for the rest of his life. Unless all his ancestors did.
I could have said that. I should have said it. That would have been a good way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Oh, unless, of course, all of its mom and dad and aunts and uncles have been eating birds for generations. But
which is why you want to buy a puppy from a breeder that hunts, because they're going to weed those out.
Yeah.
If you're buying from it is indeed a sporting breed, a pointing breed.
Right.
But it has been handled and bred by a non-hunting person. They may inadvertently, unknowingly, be passing along some undesirables.
Right.
So you want to make sure the stock you're buying from is being hunted.
Right.
Right. Now, they're weeding them out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of dogs out there that I don't want to say come from questionable breeders, but breeders that don't
light duty hunters.
There you go.
Light duty hunters.
Right.
Nothing against it.
Right.
No.
But don't
if you're a light duty hunter as well, then maybe that's the nice match, because there are other important traits: health, temperament.
Temperament's a big one.
It's a big one.
Huge one.
You don't want to be living with some dog. It's a whack job chewing your couch up every third month.
Every email I get when somebody says, I want a house dog, I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old. Well, temperament's going to be a lot of that. So you got to do your research.
Yeah, you need a trail horse, not a Kentucky Derby contender. Okay?
Right.
So you want a sound animal. You want those. You want a healthy animal.
Right.
You hear all these people spending $1,000 on these health issues with some of these dogs.
Oh, it's
like,
crazy.
oh my goodness,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other important factors in getting what you want.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Well, Justin, I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
The listeners appreciate it.
Good.
And your royalty check for downloads will come in about a month.
Well, everybody, I enjoy these. I really do. And if a small handful of people learn a little something, helps them out, then it's worth doing.
I always get emails. that
Good.
Just one person wrote me, it's like the old commercial when E.F. Hutton talks. Remember those old commercials? The whole restaurant would go quiet when the banker from E.F. Hutton would talk.
Oh, I do. I remember those
He
commercials.
would be like giving a stock tip, and the whole restaurant would go quiet. What did he say? And one girl wrote, she was, it's like listening to E.F. Hutton.
She wasn't 17.
No. Thanks, Justin.
All right, we'll see you around.